This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh is away on vacation, which means yours truly, Ben, is hosting by himself, which is a great time to discuss Ben's top 10 list of the college football players to be checking out this coming fall. We're also going to break down the Olympics, the sports that are coming to the Olympics in 2028. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit about some NFL. All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben, and yeah, Josh is not here this week. Josh is enjoying a lovely vacation. I'm sure if you've looked at his Instagram, you can kind of follow along his journey of things he's done over the weekend. We'll talk about that when he gets back, but I'm not alone. I will have a guest later, a little bit later, and that'll be a surprise for you, but we are going to talk about a few different things today. The thing is I haven't done an episode of the Baseline Podcast by myself since probably early 2022. I believe Josh and I started around March-ish or February of where we started recording together. And so people don't realize that, like, when you do it by yourself, it's kind of like you're bantering with yourself. So yeah, stay there with me. Again, we normally have a kind of someone that joins in as like a sub co-host, but this time I had a busy week. It was crazy, started a new job and all that, and I just was like, you know what? It's gonna be easier to just sit down, talk with you all. But I do have a couple of fun things to talk about. And the first thing that I want to talk about is congratulations to the United States of America for having the most medals in the Olympics. I guess that's an achievement. You know, I know I'm trying to be a little bit sarcastic because I know that there's many people, if you look at the per capita or whatever, yes, the US is not the best because we have a ton of people and a ton of athletes, but it is still impressive to have, you know, over 140 plus medals. And it's also really cool just to see, obviously, the different maybe athletes we grew up watching, you know, in basketball and soccer and all those different things. But with that being said, we did not get the most gold medals. Actually, China and the United States tied in gold medals, which I like to point out. U.S. is like bad at the sports that China is really good at and vice versa. So it's kind of like we level each other out. But it's always fun, I guess, to see the competition of the Olympics. And so for me, I wanted to take some time to talk about the Olympics because I think this is very important. We obviously know that the Olympics are coming to Los Angeles here in 2028, which maybe excites you. I'm probably going to still be here in Europe. So for me, it's not necessarily like, oh, I'm going to go. I mean, heck, this year's Olympics was like a few countries away and I didn't go. But point being is that obviously we have some new sports that are happening. Some of those new sports are, you have American flag football, you have baseball's coming back. I guess technically it would be coming back. You have squash, which, to be honest, I forgot that it was even existed as a sport. You have squash. Cricket is coming back as or not coming back. I think it's never been a sport in the Olympics. Don't quote me on that. But cricket will be a sport for the upcoming Olympics. And I believe there's one other one that I'm missing. Let me look because I know I'm mad at myself if sports. See, this is better when Josh is here because he can just start talking while I'm doing this. Sports coming to the Olympics. So like I said, sorry, 2028. Yeah, so flag football, squash, baseball, softball. Sorry, baseball, softball goes with that. Lacrosse will be coming since the first time since 1908. So that's kind of cool. Again, these are some of the sports. I do know that breakdancing supposedly is not coming back, which, you know, it's amazing. I just feel like once we go down that road, what else are we going to start adding to the Olympics? Are the esports going to become Olympics? Like if playing video games going to start becoming an Olympic sport, you know, like it's interesting to see what they do because obviously the Olympics has evolved over time, which is totally fine. Like I don't care that it has. I just think that, you know, let's just figure out what we want to be at the top tier. And as well as I've heard rumors that boxing might be going away, which I think that would be a atrocious because I feel like boxing's been around since like the beginning of the Olympics. But yeah, so these are the new sports that are coming in. Let me know in the comments below. I think I've posted a little bit on our Instagram, but it'll be very interesting to kind of see how these new sports, will we see Tyreek Hill playing flag football? We know there's this article came out today about the captain of the American flag football team was saying that, it's disrespectful to just think that NFL players can just walk in and be the flag football, participants for the Olympics. And I get what he's saying. It's kind of similar to 3-on-3, but I still feel like, again, I'm not saying anything bad about the people that are playing flag football professionally or on the national team. Look, I've seen it. It's incredibly, impressive. But I think at the same time, look, 3-on-3, at least in the women's basketball game, they have WNBA players. The 3-on-3 men's, they have professionals, right? So I'm interested to see how they do that. Will the NFL even allow it? Because we know the NFL, they just love to just, for some reason, keep their own, their own control over everything. So we'll see how that goes. And again, baseball and softball, will it be just more of a college level, amateur level type of sport? Because again, I don't see the MLB saying, hey, go ahead, and I don't even see the minor leagues saying, hey, go ahead, yeah, take off a few months, prep for the Olympics. I feel like it's gonna be more of a college level thing, the best college players, which honestly, it's kind of like soccer. I don't mind it because I think it allows exposure for these guys and to kind of build a chance at a career in that sport. Um, but again, 2028 Olympics will be now in the USA. Going back to LA for the third time. I believe they joined London and Paris as the only cities to have hosted the Olympics on 3 occasions, which is, a crazy feat. Again, it's Hollywood, it's LA. I get it. Stars come, stars are alive. But yeah, if it was here in Budapest, I'd be even more happy. But I get it. So with that, that's just my little Olympic spiel over everything. But I did have obviously a few more topics I want to discuss because I think it's important that we, obviously football season is right around the corner. And again, we've been breaking down the different divisions. Hold on. Okay. We're going to leave that in there because that's just what's going to happen today. My dog is staring at me as well. But yeah, speaking of football, obviously football season is right around the corner. I believe this is, as I'm recording, this is the last weekend before college football starts, which it won't, we'll have college football pretty much for 6 months or so, which is exciting. And to lead that, I thought that for today specifically, I'm going to pull up my list here. Uh, yeah, there it is. Here we go. So I wanted to talk about some of Ben's. We're going to say Ben's top 5. Actually, let's go Ben's top 10. I have a list of 10. I had 5 honorable mentions, but let's do top 10. So Ben's top 10 players to watch for the college football season. Now, this is not trying to be biased, right? I'm not going to just have all Ohio State guys. Players that I'm sitting here going, I'm interested to see how their season goes, how they impact, playoff races and everything like that. So these are going to be Ben's top 10 players of impact players to watch. And so first off, I'm going to start out with, this is almost like a combo for me, but this would be Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter at Colorado. And this is the reason I'm curious. And I know you've heard Josh and I on this show numerous times talk about how, with Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, with Dion and what they're doing with Colorado, but there's been no consistency. And so I guess the reason why they're what I'm, most excited to watch, I guess this is what this list is, most excited to watch for 2024 is because I'm interested to see how do they impact Colorado? How does this turn? Can they, the stardom that's surrounding Colorado, can that turn this into something that is actually able to be something? Right? Are we able to see Colorado win 8 games, 9 games, squeak into the playoff? And they're in the Big 12, which the Big 12 is not necessarily the most talent-rich not, I shouldn't say talent rich because there's a lot of great talents, Ollie Gordon and all them. I should say deep when it comes to teams that were like, hey, these teams are all going to be in the playoff, right? So I think it comes down to what can they do. And the question is too is what does Travis Hunter focus on? And Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders projected to be one of the top quarterbacks drafted. What about Travis Hunter? Does he focus on being a corner this year more than being a receiver? Look, we haven't had someone in the NFL that played both ways consistently since Dion. Really, like Dion. I mean, not even he didn't really play both ways. He just played time to time. We've seen, Chris Gamble, a few other guys, sprinkle the seeds in there. But again, what are they going to do? I believe that he has more upside I think as a corner. I think that's where he should stay. I think he's got the size, the speed. He is able to make plays on the ball, which is hard to find sometimes in DBs at this level. And I think those two guys combined are really my most, and I'm sure many people's on their top players to watch for the upcoming season. Now, another guy that I'm interested to see and watch. Fafa, stay there. Another guy that I'm interested to see that's on my list is Quinn Ewers. Right? We heard that Quinn Ewers was coming back to Texas. What does this do for Texas? Now, does this put them back in that playoff, that semifinal? Does that get them close to a championship? Obviously, they're going through heartbreak right now. And I think this is part of the reason why I'm interested to see Quinn Ewers, because they've lost now, I believe, their top two running backs to season-ending injuries, and we're not even starting the season yet. I do believe they have a top recruit who's a freshman. He's going to be available. They have a few other sophomores available. Like, they have young guys that, they can still run the ball. But again, when you're losing Brooks, you're losing some of these dudes that really can be those guys for you. It really makes me wonder, how much do you put it on Quinn Ewers' shoulders to carry you? Now, we haven't seen a team in college football since, I don't know, maybe the Cam Newton years, when Cam Newton did what he did, where they truly carries a team on his shoulders. I think it's really hard nowadays to truly carry a team. So I'm very interested to see what happens with this whole team, as my dog is coming to join to play. You just stay there, bud. But at the end of the day, I think Quinn Ewers has a big task ahead of him. We have the whole story of Arch Manning sitting behind him, and that's going to be a storyline all season. But I'm very interested to see, what does Quinn Ewers do. As a former High State player and as a High State fan myself, I always root for Quinn Ewers. He's a guy that came on for a year and spent time at High State, even though if it was to get money. It'll be interesting to see going from there. Just a sec. All right. Stop, Papa. The next one that's on my list is, it's someone who's very interesting to me, and that's Dillon Gabriel. Right? Dillon Gabriel is number 3 for me, because I think Dillon Gabriel is a guy who's moved, obviously Oregon's moving to the Big Ten. He's going to be competing against, the likes of High State, Michigan, Penn State, Washington, these teams. I'm interested to see what he does, right? He was at Oklahoma. He moves to Oregon. We know Oregon's always going to have that kind of offense that's going to challenge you vertically as well as running the ball. Can Dillon Gabriel take Oregon? Supposedly Oregon is going to be like, their fans are saying they're going to be the team. So the question is, can he bring them to a level where we are, where we're at, if that makes sense? So I'm interested to see where that goes and what Dillon Gabriel can bring to the table. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that, obviously, as the season goes on. Now, the next guy, all right, we're going to go away from, obviously, the whole running backs, the quarterbacks, and let's move into some running backs. Now, for me, the top, I guess, running backs for me is obviously, it's hard because you have so many great ones, right? And at the end of my list, you'll see some of my non-Power 5 guys that will kind of make this list. But for me, Ollie Gordon. Like, Ollie Gordon is a guy that I think is just a freak of nature. Like, watching him play, he has everything you want to be a running back at the next level. I think, he averaged 6.1 yards a carry. He had 285 rushing attempts. That's crazy to think about. He probably averaged around 20 rushes, averaged over 6 yards a carry for that, and had over 2,000 yards of scrimmage, had 1,700 yards rushing. To me, he is a guy that if you're Oklahoma State, that's your workhorse, right? You lean on him. And again, is Ollie Gordon going to watch his body though? Is he going to be able to keep himself healthy for the NFL? Right. We see what Judkins is going to go do at Ohio State. He's going to go from being the bell cow, the guy's doing it every single down, to now he's going to be splitting carries. Right. So I'm interested to see what Ollie Gordon does. He's the Dog Worker Award winner. He's an All-American. Like, look, I'll be honest, he's going to be an All-American. He'll be up there for the Heisman. He's going to be the dude. Now, the question is, how good is Oklahoma State? Again, it's a Big 12 that's not necessarily really deep. So I'm interested to see where they go. Another guy, to be honest, it's not even another guy. We're just going to put both of them together. So number 5 for me, I believe we're at 5, right? Yes. 5. Yes, 5. Is Trayvon Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. There we go. The reason I'm putting them both there is because I think they're not really going to have a full load, as you would see, if Trey was just by himself or if Quinshon was back in Old Miss. Like, Quinshon Judkins, as a freshman, as a player of the year 2 years ago, had 1,500 yards rushing, and then last year had 1,100 yards rushing. To me, it's wild, because then you tie that with TreVeyon Henderson, who, by the way, had nearly 1,000 yards, averaged 5.9 yards per carry. He just, putting these two guys together is basically putting one running back. That's why they're both on this list, kind of at the same spot, because to me, these guys are going to be fun to watch, even not just as a Ohio State fan, but just as a college football fan. I think to see what these guys are going to be able to do in that Ohio State offense with Chip Kelly running with the reins, like, I just think what they're going to be able to do is just, I think something that, maybe they're not going to have 100 yards every game. Maybe they're both going to have that 700 yards, but they're saving their bodies for the NFL. They're going to be able to do different things in the long run that they weren't going to be able to do if they were still being the main guy. So that is number 5 for me. Number 6 for me is Omarion Hampton from North Carolina. Now, we don't talk about North Carolina a lot when it comes to running backs. Usually it's been quarterback the last few years. But this is a guy who kind of out of nowhere had 1,500 yards last year, and he almost was carrying it 20 times a game, right? So, again, it's one of those guys that it's going to be on a team that's going to be a little down, right? We've talked about this. I don't know if North Carolina is going to be the same as what they've been, but I do think he's a guy that can just, do some damage when it comes to, I think, especially in the ACC, where you don't really have top huge defenses, best defenses in the world. Again, allowing themselves to have that kind of ability to flex the way they play. And I think Hampton does that. Now that we've talked about that, now we're going to talk about a couple guys at receiver who I'm very interested in. And then we're going to finish up with some guys that maybe no one's really talking about. So at 7, so 7 and 8 are going to be 2 receivers. One of those, it's pretty simple for me. And that is Luther Burden. Luther Burden, who, okay, I know Missouri beat Ohio State in the bowl game, but this guy is only going to be a junior. And what does that mean? That means that he's still freaking young. And he had 1,200 yards from scrimmage. He had 1,200 yards total receiving, and he had 9 touchdowns. He had nearly 90 receptions. And so Luther Burden has game-changing speed. He has what I like to say is that he is so consistent that he's almost to the point where it was almost kind of the way, I guess, Marv was his sophomore year, when Marv was just like every game, 9, 10 catches. That's what Luther Burden, I think, will be this year. Again, a Missouri team that has a very easy schedule, a team that, he could put up the 80 to 90 to 100 catches, 13, 14, 1,500 yards, and we're talking about a top 10 draft pick in the spring. And so I'm very interested to see what does Missouri do to keep Luther Burden the ball, to keep getting the ball, to keep providing that spark that I think Luther Burden and guys like him that can provide. So that's why he is number 7 for me. Number 8 is a guy who could have went a lot of different ways, but it's Jeremiah Smith. Now, I'm fascinated with Jeremiah Smith because not only is he a Ohio State guy, but he is the earliest freshman ever at Ohio State to lose the black stripe during the springtime. There have been people comparing him to every different wide receiver in the NFL. He's fast. He's physical. If you don't know, go watch him on YouTube. Jeremiah Smith. I'm quoting that here. Jeremiah Smith will be starting at Ohio State by the end of the year. And it would not shock me if he had 700 yards receiving his freshman year. And then obviously you're going to have him for 2 more years. You're talking probably 1,400 yards for the next 2 years. You're talking about the greatest 3-run stretch of a wide receiver at Ohio State in Ohio State history and breaking probably many records, right? Like that's the guy we're talking about. That's a guy who I believe could suit up for an NFL practice squad, NFL roster in the preseason right now. Like you've seen it. We've all seen it. We've seen the videos. We've seen his freakish athleticism. We've seen his speed. I mean, he's 6'3". He's not small, but he's super fast. He's a guy who can punt return. He could kick return if you need him to. You got to get him on the field, and I urge Ryan Day, get him on the field any way possible. Now, for number 9 and number 10, I'm kind of going off the beaten path here. And these are 2 guys that sorry, I'm just pulling up my notes. That I believe are going to have just a absolutely phenomenal years, I should say, for this upcoming season. And this is, if I can find my list, sorry. This is what happens when Josh is not here. I said it earlier. Where is it? Oh, yes. Here we go. So first one, they're both, well, I guess one's a running back. One's, I should say I have 2 guys in an honorable mention. So the first one is Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. He's a running back. He is just like, he's a freak. That's the best I can put it. He had over 500 yards of receiving. He, I believe, ran for, let me look at his stats here. Yeah. So he had 1,300 yards rushing. He had 14 touchdowns. Like again, non-power 5, right? We see these numbers. I play fantasy football. Like those are the guys I go after, right? But Jeanty is a guy who I think could be, dare I say a chance at the Heisman? No, he's not going to have the chance at the Heisman, but I do believe he's going to be one of the best backs in America, most underrated backs in America. And I think that's where I think people need to watch. If they want to watch something outside of the Power 4, I should say, not the Power 5, sorry, the Power 4, I'd watch Boise State, watch Ashton Jeanty, and I think you'll be very, very surprised. Another guy who came on at the end of the season. Hey, stop. The end of the season. Sorry, I'm pulling up my list again. This is what happens again, I said. Oh, yes. Number 10 for me is Gio Lopez. Now, you might not know who Gio Lopez is because he is basically unknown. He appeared in 5 games. The bowl game, he was the MVP, right? He's a lefty, which I don't know. There's just something about lefty QBs. It's just kind of fun to watch, but he's a young guy. He's a very, whenever I watch the, gameplay of him, he's very shifty. He's a guy who I think can make some damage, I think, for South Alabama. Again, South Alabama, a team that's not necessarily a well-known team, but I think he's going to provide this, some would say, dare I say, some spark in some of the non-power four conferences. And I think he's a guy who easily could throw for 3,000 yards, run for 400 or 500 yards. Again, he's only a redshirt freshman. He's a guy who is going to just only get better. So look up Gio Lopez. That's a guy I would look up as well. And then for my honorable mention, we are going to go to Caden Salter, who, if you watch Liberty Flames football, you know who I'm talking about. He is the quarterback for Liberty Flames. He didn't transfer. He's a senior this year. Again, he had a great season last year. I'm very interested to see how does he change from 20 really, how does Liberty change, right? Do they change, right? Or do they stay the very heavy running offense that they were? Last year, he threw for 2,800 yards, had 32 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. He also ran for 1,000 yards with 12 touchdowns. So he accounted for over nearly 4,000 total yards with 43 touchdowns. To me, he is one of the he's almost like a Justin Fields-esque when it comes to running the ball. And I think that's what makes him you have Cooley, the running back, you put those two together, it's just a dynamic offense. Again, they almost run the ball like I would say 67% of the time. It feels like, at least. And I think that makes them dangerous. And I think that's what makes them such a challenge. But yeah, so I'm really interested to see how does this translate to big games when they have, again, I don't know. Let me look at Liberty's schedule. Liberty's schedule. Let's see here. They play. I cannot see where's Liberty. Liberty. Yeah. All right. They have, if I look at their schedule here, Liberty's schedule, they have Campbell, New Mexico State, UTEP, ECU, App State, FIU, Kennesaw State, Jacksonville State, Middle Tennessee State, Massachusetts, MKU, and Sam Houston. They should go undefeated. And I think he could have a big year, and I think that's where that is what we're going to see this year. So that is my top 10 players to watch in college football. Let me know if you agree down below. I tend to think I'm right, but if you watch the show, I tend to think I'm right about a lot of things. But we are going to shift gears. Yes, so now we're switching gears, but we're staying in the same sport, the sport of football. We're now going to be talking about the NFL. And I know that we have been breaking down the divisions of the NFL. We won't do that right now. That will be when Josh gets back. Let's just give the luxury to Josh to actually have a chance to, defend or persecute mine and defend his opinion. But what we are going to do is we're going to be talking about Ben's top 10 teams for 2024, right? So Ben's top 10 teams. No biased. I'm not trying to be biased, but my top 10 teams, we'll start at 10. We'll work our way to who I think basically my power rankings, but my top 10 teams for 2024. We just did top 10 players of impact that I think will happen, or at least fun to watch in college football. Now we're going to switch to the NFL. Again, this will probably be the last topic that I talk about in the episode. Again, I don't really know how this episode is going to be finishing. So again, we'll see at the end. You will be seeing or listening, and maybe I'm just crazy. I don't know. But here we go. Number 10 for me in the NFL. Number 10 team, for me in the NFL right now is, I'm going to say, and this is hard for me to say as a Browns fan, is the Cincinnati Bengals. I think the Bengals will be better than the Steelers. We talked about this. I think that they're going to be that third team in the NFL, the AFC North. And I think for me, Joe Burrow being healthy, again, asterisks, and them trying to figure out, it seems like they figured out the blocking. Now, they've said that before, but it seems like they got figured out the offensive line. Their defense is still about the same. Again, they're going to still have the receivers. Again, Jamar Chase, the most underpaid receiver in the NFL. They tied up their kicker for 3 years, but yet they won't. That's another conversation for another day. But I think the Cincinnati Bengals, they're going to be a team to reckon with. Again, I believe the AFC North could put 3 teams in the NFL playoffs. We'll have to wait and see. But they have a schedule that I think favors them for the most part. And I think you're going to have the Bengals, for me, as my number 10 team. Now, my number 9 team. Now this is where we're going to start getting a little, as I like to say, we're going to get a little interesting on the books. If I can find my list, because I had it. No, I don't want a video. I just want my list. Yes. So here we go. So my number 9 team in the NFL is going to be. This is tough. Again, I don't remember actually all the records that I said. I'm just going off what I believe. And number 9 for me, just because this division is going to be so bad, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I'm just doing this mainly because this division is going to be the NFC South is just going to be so bad that honestly, you kind of have to put one of those teams in this. And so I think the Buccaneers, obviously Baker Mayfield, he's been locked up for another year or 2 years. Can't remember. Obviously, you have Evans. You have again a solid defense. I think again, be interested to see how they adjust things throughout the season. But for me, Tampa Bay is number 2. Number 3 for me. Sorry, not number 2. Sorry, they're number 9. Number 8 for me is we're going to stay in the yes, we're going to stay in the NFC, and that's going to be no. We'll go AFC here. AFC for me, we're going to go the Cleveland Browns. Now, I don't have them higher. I know as a Browns fan I should, but the reason they're 8 for me is because I think that I'm still concerned about with again, I think they're the second best team in the AFC North. I think they're going to win 10 to 11 games. Maybe. Probably more 10 games, I'm guessing. I'm worried about Deshaun Watson. Does he have the durability? Can he last a whole season? What's Nick Chubb? Is Nick Chubb going to be around? I've been watching the preseason. They're getting injuries to their backups left and right. And we all know in the NFL, you need to have depth. So that worries me. You know, the defense doesn't worry me as much as the offense, but still, it does worry me. So again, that's why they're at 8 for me. Again, as a Browns fan, it's just more of me, trying to please myself and make myself at least a little more excited about the upcoming season. Number 7 for me is, I'm going to say, this is a tough one. I'm going to say the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? I think Jacksonville Jaguars are a team that has some upside. We've talked about it. Again, I wasn't super high on them in my rankings or recently, but I think they're a team that they could squeak in. They could win 9 games, squeak in the playoffs. I don't know. But for me, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars have enough young talent to do something with. The question is, can they put it all together? And that's for me. Sorry, that was 7. Yes. Number 6 for me. 6 for me is the Houston Texans. Again, another team, young stars, CJ Stroud. You know I love CJ Stroud. Josh and I are very high on CJ Stroud. I think there's still a lot for this team to do. I think they need to figure out the running game, I think, a little more consistently. Will the defense still be the same defense from last year, right? Like, can they keep up that same pace? Again, a lot of questions, I think, to be answered, but early on, it looks like they're going to do what they can. Number 5 for me is we're going to go the Dallas Cowboys. And I hate to put the Dallas Cowboys in the top 5, but look, they have an explosive offense. They have a couple very good studs on defense. The question is, and always the question is, can Jerry and company put it together and actually win some ball games? That's the question for me. And I'm interested to see, what is your guys' take? Do you think the Cowboys should even be in the top 10 because they just seem to never be a top 10 team? But again, they have a very talented offense. Can they put it together? That's the biggest question. And if they can answer that, man, that's a scary, scary team. Number 4 for me is, again, another tough one. I'm going to go Detroit. I think Detroit is a top a top tier team. Um, again, they're I love what Campbell's doing up there. Josh and I talk about it all the time. We love what he's doing up there, and for me, that's the most important part. Is if your coach has got it right and the behind the scenes you've got it figured out, the rest of it just becomes so much easier. And I think that's what's so exciting. Just to have a little bit of, I guess it brings the excitement for the fans when they see that what you're doing is working and you're just kind of a hometown guy in a sense where they just love you anyways. I think that makes it so much better. All right. Number 3 for me. I just realized I messed up this list and I'm going to bite myself in the foot. All right, this is going to be top 11. So we're going to bump every team down. Number 3 for me is the Miami Dolphins. So imagine this is top 11 because I just added wrong in my head of my list because I had all the teams labeled down. But anyways, 3 for me is the Miami Dolphins. Again, I think they have one of the best offenses. It's the most creative offenses, one of the most creative offenses in football. And I think it's just this team is going to be so solid for so many years to come. And again, the defense worries me. Again, it's another offensive team that the defense just scares me. But if they put that together, I think they are a top 3 team in the top 4 team in the NFL. Again, realizing I messed up because I don't like editing a lot. So we're going to just say we're going to do top 12 teams, I guess, because everything's being bumped down. So Miami's at 4 technically. 3 for me is going to be Baltimore. Again, they have Derrick Henry. They have a lot to go with this. I think that Baltimore is a team that if Lamar Jackson is playing like the Lamar Jackson of old, you time that with Derrick Henry, you add that with a very good, always solid defense. This is a team that is a force to be reckoned with. And I'm very interested to see how that goes and transpires. Number 2 that I have down, and where is it? 2 for me is, yes, here they are, is the 49ers. Again, I think they are a team that they're just so loaded. Like you just look at the team, like they were trying to trade Brandon Ayuk and they already had 3 other guys they could put out there, right? So for me, to be a top 2 team, top 3 team in the NFL, you have to be deep and ready to compete. And they definitely are ready to compete. But yeah, I'm interested to see can Brock Purdy keep that same rhythm that he had last year? Can Ayuk get over his crybaby attitude and figure something out and get back on the field? Again, all these things will be interested to see. And then number 1 for me is easy. The Kansas City Chiefs. They're the best team in football. I mean, if you saw the I guess video of who was it? Yeah, Patrick Mahomes flipping it behind his back, completing a pass to Travis Kelce. I'm sorry. Like if your quarterback is doing that, there's no way you're below number 1. Like this team is just on another level. They have one of the best coaches ever, in my opinion, to ever coach in Andy Reid, who seems to just be turning guys that are not nobodies into something and creating offenses that are just so unique. And, we've heard so many stories of how he does it, but it is fascinating to me. And I'm really excited to see what does this Chiefs team do. And yeah, that's my top 12 teams so again, apologies when you get to number 3, again, if you just go back down. Oh, and then I'm just realizing I left the Eagles off the list and Josh would let me have it on this. So I'll stick the Eagles up there in the top 3. Again, they have one of the best overall teams. I just missed them again I didn't even type them into my list. So it turned in from a top 10 to a top 13, but you get the picture. Those are my top 13 teams in the NFL. I'm interested to see your thoughts. Do you think the Jaguars should be as high as I have them or the Houston Texans? Do you feel like I'm pitting on the NFC South, or do you believe that's kind of a deserved reputation? But again, these are just my opinions. I'm interested to hear yours and so on. But with that being said, I don't know if there is a conversation with my wife after this portion of the podcast. So if there is, awesome. And here it is to the conversation with my wife, Rebecca. But if not, then forget that I said any of that. And I might edit it out. I don't even know. But if I decide not to do that, or there's not enough time, then here's the outro for the podcast. I really appreciate you guys listening to the podcast, especially when Josh isn't here and it's just me and I've been talking for like the last hour as I've been recording this, and my voice is like slowly going, and I'm realizing how crazy I was to be doing this for like the first 40 episodes of the podcast I did by, I've been 40. Was it 40? Might have been 30. 30 episodes I did by myself, and I understand why I don't do that anymore. But hopefully, and Lord willing, Josh will be back next week. We're excited to bring every week, new ideas. We try to add some new flares to things. Again, we're going to finish our NFL talks here in the next few weeks. College football's happening, which is just crazy to think about. It's exciting. We're going to be breaking down all the games every single week. Once they happen, we'll break them down. Stay in tune to our Instagram. That's where I post a lot of the stories. We might have different things that we're talking about that during football season that will pop up. So again, just let me know what you guys want to hear, want to see, and that's always a great help. And once again, if you love watching this on YouTube, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, go ahead and give us a nice rating. Always looks good in the algorithm, and then share it with your friends and family. Hope you guys have a great weekend. If you're here in Hungary, enjoy the holiday. And if you're back home, enjoy work, I guess. But anyways, hope you guys have a great time. And until next time, we'll see ya.